It was an ordinary spring morning in Europe. Passengers boarded Germanwings Flight 9525 from Barcelona to Düsseldorf, expecting a routine journey. Businessmen, students, families, all unaware of the tragedy awaiting them in the skies. Just 2 hours separated them from their destination, but hidden behind the calm voice of a young co-pilot lay a storm brewing.
Open the door! Open the door! Open the door! Let me in!
Within hours, this flight would end in a devastating crash in the French Alps, shocking the entire world. This is not just a story about a plane crash. It is the story of betrayal, secrecy, and how one man's hidden demons destroyed 150 innocent lives. The calm before the storm. On March 24, 2015, Germanwings Flight 9525, an Airbus A320, prepared for departure from Barcelona Airport. At the controls were Captain Patrick Sondenheimer, a respected and experienced pilot, and his co-pilot, 27-year-old Andreas Lubitz. The skies were clear, the route was familiar, and nothing seemed unusual. Passengers fastened their seatbelts while the cabin crew reassured everyone of a smooth trip ahead. The aircraft carried 144 passengers and 6 crew members. Little did they know, one of the men entrusted to bring them safely home was hiding dangerous thoughts. The flight began normally, with laughter, quiet conversations, and engines roaring into the sky. The co-pilot's troubled past. Andreas Lubitz had always dreamed of flying. From a young age, he showed passion for aviation, joining gliding clubs before pursuing commercial pilot training with Lufthansa. Yet beneath his ambition lay deep struggles. During training, he suffered from severe depression, insomnia, and anxiety. His condition became so serious that at one point his medical certificate was revoked. Though he returned to flying after treatment, the struggle never truly ended. Lubitz concealed much of his medical history, fearing it would cost him his career. Outwardly, he appeared dedicated and capable. In reality, dark psychological battles raged inside him, battles nobody else fully recognized. The flight begins at 9 a.m. Flight 9525 departed Barcelona and climbed smoothly toward cruising altitude. The cabin was peaceful as the Airbus leveled at 38,000 feet. From the cockpit, Captain Sondenheimer and Lubitz communicated with air traffic control, guiding the aircraft across the Mediterranean. The passengers, unaware of any danger, settled in, some reading, others napping. To observers, it looked like every other flight between Spain and Germany. But the co-pilot carried a secret plan. Hidden behind his calm demeanor, he was waiting for the moment when control of the aircraft would fall entirely into his hands. That moment was drawing closer. The captain leaves the cockpit. After about half an hour of cruising, the captain needed to use the restroom. This was routine. Pilots often alternate brief breaks during long flights. "You take over," he told Lubitz, leaving him alone in the cockpit. This seemingly normal action marked the beginning of catastrophe. Lubitz waited for the captain to exit before locking the reinforced cockpit door from inside. Modern aircraft doors are designed to be impenetrable from the outside, a safety measure against hijackings. But this system also meant that once locked, the captain had no way of re-entering. The co-pilot now had complete control of the plane. Moments later, the captain returned and attempted to re-enter. He knocked, then used the intercom, pleading with Lubitz to open the door. There was no response. Panic spread as the captain realized the door had been locked intentionally. He shouted, banged on the door, and tried to use the emergency keypad. But Lubitz had disabled it, preventing override access. Passengers began to notice the commotion, hearing muffled yelling from the front. Inside, Lubitz remained silent, breathing calmly, eyes fixed on the controls. He had already programmed the autopilot to descend the aircraft steadily toward the mountains of southern France. Silent descent. Air traffic controllers at Marseille soon noticed something alarming. The aircraft, cleared to cruise at 38,000 feet, was descending rapidly without permission. They radioed the cockpit. "Germanwings 9525, what altitude are you cleared for?" There was no reply. Again and again they tried, but silence filled the channel.
Open the door. Open the door. Open the door. Let me in.
Only the sound of steady breathing could be heard on cockpit recordings. Outside the door, Captain Sondenheimer desperately tried to break through, even attempting to force it with an emergency axe. His cries of "Open the door! Open the door now!" echoed, but Lubitz never moved.
Open the door. Open the door. Open the door. Let me in.
The descent continued, relentless and terrifying. The crash in the Alps. Within minutes, the aircraft dropped thousands of feet. Passengers now realized something was terribly wrong as the plane dipped lower and lower toward the French Alps. Some screamed, others clutched loved ones, while the captain continued his desperate fight to re-enter. Warning alarms bled in the cockpit. Terrain ahead. Pull up. Still, Lubitz did nothing. At 10:41 a.m., Germanwings Flight 9525 crashed into the mountains at over 400 miles per hour. The impact destroyed the plane instantly, leaving no survivors. All 150 people, students, teachers, professionals, families, were gone. The world had just witnessed one of aviation's darkest tragedies. Rescue and aftermath. Emergency teams rushed to the remote crash site, but reaching it was nearly impossible. The wreckage was scattered across steep, rocky slopes of the French Alps. Helicopters ferried in rescue workers, but there was little they could do. The crash was so violent that the debris field was almost unrecognizable. Families of the victims gathered in grief as news spread worldwide. 16 schoolchildren on a class trip were among those lost, making the tragedy even harder to bear. Vigils and memorials soon followed, with candles, flowers and balloons released into the sky in memory of those 150 innocent souls. The investigation. Investigators quickly recovered the plane's black box, which contained cockpit voice recordings. What they discovered was chilling. The recording revealed the captain's frantic attempts to re-enter, the passengers' panic, and above all, the calm, steady breathing of Lubitz as he guided the plane into the mountains. Further investigation uncovered medical records showing his long battle with depression and recent treatment for mental health issues. Shockingly, documents revealed he had been declared unfit to work by doctors, but he kept this hidden from his employer. Germanwings and Lufthansa had no knowledge of his worsening condition before the crash. Global reactions and safety changes. The revelation that a trusted pilot had deliberately caused the crash stunned the aviation world. How could such a responsibility fall into the hands of someone struggling so deeply? Airlines and regulators rushed to implement new safety rules. One immediate measure was the two-person cockpit rule, requiring at least 2 crew members inside at all times. There were also calls for improved psychological screening, random drug and alcohol testing, and better systems for reporting mental health issues without fear of losing employment. The tragedy sparked global debate about pilot privacy, mental health, and the balance of safety and compassion. Legacy of the victims. Behind the statistics were real people, children who would never return to their parents, families torn apart, and communities left grieving. Captain Patrick Sondenheimer's wife later established a foundation in his honor to support children facing grief and crisis. Around the world, families of victims received support and compensation, but nothing could truly heal the loss. Every year, memorials are held in the French Alps at the site of the crash. The names of the 150 victims are engraved on plaques, serving as a permanent reminder of the tragedy and the urgent need for better mental health awareness in aviation. Conclusion. Germanwings Flight 9525 remains a haunting story of how hidden battles within one man led to disaster. For the passengers, it began as just another flight home. For their families, it became a nightmare that never ends. Aviation has since changed, with new safety measures and greater awareness about mental health. But questions still linger. Could this have been prevented? How many others silently suffer in roles of great responsibility? As the world remembers the lives lost, the tragedy of Germanwings 9525 stands as a stark reminder that sometimes the greatest danger in the skies is not outside, but within.